Welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey Podcast. In this podcast, we talk about books, interview authors, and we discuss their journey to becoming published. Each one has a different but amazing story. My hope is to encourage people to keep reading good books and to help authors find their audience and inspire everyone in their journey, whatever that might be. Welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey Podcast. Welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey Podcast. My name is Art and I'm your host, and I have a special guest on the podcast today. Her name is Michelle Rene DeBellis, and she's the author of the multi-award-winning novel, The Music We Make. Her vision is to deliver entertaining stories that help us make sense of our humanity. The Music We Make is an introspective account of a young musician who discovers what it means to be true to yourself through trauma, grief, and addiction. And I think we're in for another powerful story on today's episode. So, Michelle, welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey Podcast.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I love the approach that you take to your book, how you weave in music with the story and how music tells a story, how the book tells the story. It's such a powerful medium. But as we were talking previously, your story deals with love.
The book is a love story, but it's not just a romantic love story. It's one of the most powerful relationships, I think, in this novel is a relationship between Santiago and his sister Lucy. I think that sibling relationship is what pulls him through and what also takes the place of his relationship with his mother when he loses his mother. And that was just so challenging and painful for him. But I think the love between the characters, both romantic and otherwise, is one of the most powerful aspects of the music we make.
What I'm finding on this podcast is that there are many ways to tell a story, not just words on a page. I recently had a guest that talked about how food tells a story, and that was really neat. And so we'll talk more about music and your journey to publication. But first of all, I love to ask the question, what are you reading right now?
I just finished a book by Bonnie Garmis called Lessons in Chemistry, which I thought was so much fun to read, but also so incredibly important about what women have been through. The book is set in the 50s and the 60s, and I felt so empowered as a woman to look back and realize how far we've come. And so it's a really powerful book. I really recommend it.
That's actually, that book is on my TBR list. I had a guest a couple months ago now. She recommended that, and so I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. So I'll be reading it soon. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, it's a great one. And I'm also reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, which has really broadened my horizons about identity and the roles we choose and the ego versus spirit relationship, which I think is essential for everyone to take a look at.
Would you describe yourself as an avid reader?
Absolutely. I used to read about 4 books a month for about a little over 10 years, and I was always trying to find that type of story that I wanted to write. So I would say, I'm going to read a classic. Now I'm going to read a sci-fi. Now I'm going to read a romance. Now I'm going to read, it was like I was always trying to mix it up and read a little bit of everything. And I had this incredible eclectic lineup of books that I was always reading. And I recently kind of slowed down. I said, you know what? I don't need to consume books quite so quickly. But now I'm, reading like 1 or 2 a month, and usually a couple at a time.
I sometimes have to remind myself to slow down when I read. It's not a race,
Right, it's not a race, and it's also not something that we like. It can become a diversion from the things that we're trying to avoid ourselves as well. And books are a wonderful diversion, and I think they're an important diversion. But I was noticing that I was relying on them too much, and so it was nice to say, you know what, let me slow it down a little bit and enjoy each one a little bit more as I went more slowly.
I like to listen to audiobooks a lot, and like if I'm walking the dog or exercising or something, it's a great time to just pop on an audiobook and enjoy a story.
I love audiobooks so much, and I especially loved making the audiobook for the music we make. I narrated the audio version, and it was the funnest part of the process, hands down. It was incredible to become the characters
Mm.
with my voice and perform the story that way.
Yeah, that's got to be fun. To breathe life into them, so they almost become,
Hmm.
a real thing, and like, oh,
Yeah,
I created this. This is great.
absolutely. I felt like this is what I was supposed to be doing, and I thought, God, I
Right.
better hurry up and write the next book so I can get back in the studio and narrate it.
There you are. Uh, well, let's start at the beginning of your journey. How you became an author. What's the story of your path to publication?
I wanted to be an author since I was a kid. I was one of those kids that was walking around narrating everything that I did, the way I was walking, how everything looked in a room. And um, it was something that I knew that I always wanted to do. And there was an experience I had as a young person. I think I was about 9 years old in school, where a teacher had assigned us a writing assignment to describe a room. And I did this beautiful description, and she told me all the reasons why I hadn't done it right, because I wasn't giving a physical description. I was giving a very abstract description of the lack of love in a room. And she said, "You did it wrong." And I thought, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I knew that I had done well, and I took it home to my mom, and she said, "Michelle, you're a writer." And she was so enthusiastic about that. She was so proud. And I knew then that that was really what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. And so I devoured, all the books, and I wanted to know what kind of book I wanted to write. And that was why I
Mhm.
was reading so many for so long. It was just like trying to get to the bottom of what works and what doesn't work in storytelling. And I knew, like, I wrote plays and poetry and novels, and I thought, no, novels are what's it for me. I love novels, and that's what I want to write. And so that was the beginning of that. And then my process in writing the music we make was very long and drawn out. I wrote the book 7 times.
Mm.
And I always said to myself, my contract with this project is growth as an author. And so as I would write each draft, I would sort of dissect how much growth I had achieved, and if I had in fact achieved what I set out to do, which was to tell a really meaningful and entertaining story. Something that when you experienced it, you felt like, oh, that was so powerful. That was
Mm.
so important. And so it's been a real thrill that a lot of the reviews I get, a lot of the editorial reviews have called it important, have
Mhm.
called it meaningful, have called it have called it, this intense look at grief, this intense look at the power of music to heal.
Mhm.
So that's been really wonderful.
You use a lot of things that you've gone through and your husband have gone through to kind of craft this story it's not really a memoir of your life, but you certainly add a lot of yourself to the story.
Absolutely. It's a completely fictional story, but it has been augmented with the depth of my own personal experiences. So the story is about a young man who loses his mother in a car accident that he survives, and then receives 4 musical notes from his late mother to write a song that will help him recover from his grief, but also the addiction that he falls into, and through the physical pain of the car accident, and then of course the emotional pain of losing his mother in that accident.
Mm.
And for me, I had experienced a very difficult car accident in which I had surgery after surgery and Vicodin prescription after Vicodin prescription, and fell into uh, an opiate addiction at the same time that my husband was writing a song for his mother, who he'd lost suddenly. And so I
Mhm.
kind of combined those two ideas into this powerful storyline of the music we make. But the song that my husband wrote, which is called Bird of Paradise, and you can find it on Apple Music or Spotify, is this incredibly beautiful piece of music that my husband spent years with. And there was a long period of time where every time he sat down at a piano, which was daily, he would play the chorus of this song, but it didn't make any progress. It didn't go anywhere. And one of my goals in writing this story was to help him see, to show him how to overcome his own artistic roadblocks to writing this song. And the amazing thing was that we both finished the song and the book alongside each other.
Hmm.
And they were both nominated for a Pulitzer. So it was incredible.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. So it's almost like I mean, you're definitely both helping each other
Yeah,
on that journey. That's amazing.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
what is it about storytelling that you love?
My favorite thing about storytelling is moving people,
Hmm.
is allowing them to feel the feelings of the characters. And and for me, my favorite part of writing is improving the craft that allows a story to move people. I would always, as I would finish up part of the story, I would reread it and think, is this what I'm trying to say? And is this going to elicit the visceral response that would allow people to experience it the way that I imagine the character in the story experiencing it?
Hmm. Yeah. And, looking for that human connection, that
Mhm.
understanding, that we're not writing just to, employ cheap tricks to make you cry or whatever. Which I don't know, for me, it's easy to do, but to,
I would say if a book doesn't make you cry, then it wasn't worth reading.
there you are. And I just had a guest on who said that, I think she said it was actually her husband came up with this, but that every story is a love story.
Mm.
That it's about, husband's love for his wife or parent for their child, siblings, whatever, which is a lot of your themes in
Yeah.
your novel. Yeah. It's something we all experience. And I love finding those stories that teach me something, or
Mhm.
that's not just an entertaining story, but here is a expression or a lesson about some issue that we're having in society right now, or some,
Right. And in my story, that issue
yeah,
that we're experiencing in society right now is the opiate epidemic, and
right.
how frowned upon it is, and how the best way out of any addiction is through human relationships and love and being supported, and having connection to other people, which a
Hmm.
lot of times people, when they experience addiction, they become shunned and they lose those connections and they lose that way out.
Hmm.
And I think it's important to shine a light on the importance of being there for people when they're experiencing addiction.
That kind of reminds me of when I turned 18, which was a long time ago now.
Me
My
too.
my grandparents took me to Seattle. I had been living in Washington State at the time, and they took me just to walk around the city. I don't think hadn't really been to the city before. It was an eye-opening experience, and I think one thing I'll always remember is just right downtown, just seeing people, like homeless people. Um, One guy I remember, he was just laying on the in an alley, bottles around him and everything,
Mm.
and I must have I made some comment to my grandparents about that, and um, my grandma, I can remember her saying, well, we don't know, how he got there or what
Yeah.
his journey is, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. I mean, what was his needs? What drove him to that point? What did he not have the people in his life to help him, or did he choose not to seek their help, or all these questions, that kind of go through your
Mm.
18-year-old mind. But it was a really profound moment in my life,
Mm.
and I'm really grateful for it. It was just a simple thing of, hey, let's just go to Seattle and walk around. Like,
Right.
wow,
Well, I'm glad you
what?
had your grandmother there to sort of, with her comment, sort of remove some of the natural judgment that you
Yeah,
experienced. You know what I mean? I think that's really
yeah,
great. And it goes back to the importance of relationships and
mm-hmm,
how valuable they are, and helping us see things in a new light.
mm-hmm, absolutely. With my family, and my wife and my kids, we've gone through good times and hard times, and trying to imagine going through that without them, I can't imagine that. And I'm grateful that we are here together to walk through this all together. I
Mhm.
wouldn't have it any other way. So, uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a powerful. element, I guess, to any person's story is have a friend, have whether it's your blood family or somebody you call family, have that person you can walk with through anything.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the ways that we overcome our pain is by choosing the people in our lives to help us do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the themes in music we make.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the book a little bit more. So some of it again is kind of drawn from your own experiences. But what is the book about? Who are some of the characters we meet in it? What can we expect out of it?
Well, there's Santiago DeAngelo, who is a young man who loses his mother in an accident that he survives and has to overcome his opiate addiction and his grief to write the one song that would help him make peace with her death while he's wrestling with the experiences of a Hollywood pop music contract. So there's a very exciting story element that's going on in terms of his journey with music and fame. But it ultimately comes down to that more important relationship with overcoming pain to achieve what his real dream is, and to get sort of past the glitz and the glamour and the exciting parts of it to what's really essential and what will really help him grow and move away from the pain that he's suffering.
Working through that pain, that takes hard work. There's no shortcut. There's no
Right.
shortcut you can take with processing grief or
Well, and Santiago thinks he's going to take a shortcut when he meets Kitty Holladay,
mm-hmm.
who also has her own first person perspective, and is, I like to think of her as a modern day Scarlett O'Hara. She's very ambitious, and she's not afraid to use her sexuality to get ahead. Although she learns that maybe that's not ever really helped her at all, but she's has her ideas about how she's going to achieve her dreams and achieve her goals, and how she will use Santiago, for example, to do that. And she has her own demons to move through and to fight. And when she meets up with Santiago, there's this intense chemistry between them, and they both have their own drug addictions, and they sort of fuel each other's drug addictions. And so, obviously, in terms of overcoming addiction, that's not the right way to go about it. But their love for each other kind of leads to an understanding of how to overcome their addictions. And I think the chemistry between them is incredibly fun. Um, but one of my favorite female characters in the book is Lucy DeAngelo, his sister. The scenes between them are just some of my favorite in the book, and their love for each other is so authentic and so rewarding, and what it creates and what it allows, I think, is so beautiful.
And again, goes back to walking with somebody through those hardships and finding
Mhm.
somebody you can trust,
Right.
which can be hard. I'll be honest. I probably have trust issues with a lot of people, but
Well,
yeah,
and that's how it is for Sophia. She meets
yeah.
Santiago, and they're about the same age, and they have this natural attraction to each other. And she doesn't trust him because she learns that he has this opiate addiction, and she has a mother who is an alcoholic. And she says, I don't want a relationship with anyone who has addiction issues. I don't trust you. I don't want to deal with that. But unfortunately, she's already fallen in love with him, and so she
Hmm.
she says, "Okay, I'm here for you, and I want to be here for you." Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she wants the life that he wants, that his passions and what that means in terms of the type of life he wants to live equals the type of life or the type of partner that she wants to have.
When writing such a powerful story like this, do you find it at times it's almost therapeutic for yourself that you can?
Absolutely. There were whole drafts of the novel that felt like if all this ever is for me is therapy, then it will have been work well done.
Now yeah, and music plays a very important part in the story, and in your own journey as well. Can music tell a story, and how is that? How does music tell a story?
I think music tells a story even more powerfully than words can tell a story. Uh, One of the ways I like to describe this is think of any movie really, but think of your favorite movie and think of the score and the music that is in the background of every scene. The music sets the emotional tone. It allows us to know how we're supposed to feel. It gives us
Mm-hmm.
either the we know something exciting or something scary or something beautiful is coming. Um, when we see a scene between two people and the music is soft and beautiful, it might be a love scene or it's going to be a very touching scene, and the music kind of guides us to into the feeling place that it sets the tone for the dialogue, sets the tone for the action. I think music tells a story incredibly well, especially in movies. And that's why I'm so excited about the score for the music we make in the movie that is, I'm only in the beginning stages of, but it's going to be probably the most powerful part of the movie, the score and the way that the song Bird of Paradise is interwoven into the scenes and the new music that we'll write for the score and for the original songs as well. But I think music, like for Santiago, there's this talk between him and Kitty about what comes first, the music or the lyrics. And she always says, the lyrics come first for me. The lyrics tell the story, and then I find the music that supports that. And he says, well, for me, the music came first. And at the scene in which he first receives the music is one of my favorite. He's he's heavily addicted to the opiates at this point. He's taken a couple of Ambien. He just kind of wants to black out and just escape this intense grief that he feels for having lost his mother. But at the same time, is also experiencing so much physical pain from recovering from a major car accident. And he takes these pills, and he just kind of is, sinking into this sort of trance that he's in from the combination of the Vicodin and the Ambien, and he sinks to the bottom of this pond that he's there with his sister, and and he's like remembering, being in these beautiful moments with his sister, but then she's gone, and it's just this gray dark water, and he thinks about dying. He thinks about not taking the next breath, or how could he die. And in the middle of feeling this first time that he experiences a suicidal thought, calling out to his mother for help, almost forgetting in that moment that she's gone, and saying, help me, mom, help me. And instantly he hears these four beautiful musical notes, and they become this sort of spirit guide to bring him back to himself. And in real
Mm-hmm.
life, my husband experienced these four musical notes that were the basis of the song Bird of Paradise that he spent years and years writing.
Talking about turning it into a movie, then you can add all the visual component to it,
Mm-hmm.
all of that. Uh, do you have an ideal cast in mind that you'd like to see
I
in the
have a
film?
fantasy dream cast. Maybe they'll
Yeah,
hear this podcast and say, you know what, it sounds like a good project. But
yeah,
Mia
yeah.
Massoud, who played Aladdin, I think would be incredible because
Hmm.
he sings and he dances and he's got a great look. He looks like Santiago. Also, I think Elizabeth Debicki would make an amazing Kitty Holladay. She played Princess Diana in The Crown. I also think Margot Robbie would be exceptional as Kitty Holladay because she's this gorgeous woman, but she can play a character that's broken
Hmm.
and has been traumatized. So I know she'd do an amazing job with that. And then Lily James, I think, would make a wonderful Sophia. So those are, some of my dream
Hmm.
cast members for the movie.
Yeah. Then who would be doing the music for the film? Do you have any thoughts
Well,
on
I
that?
I think my husband Dominic DeBellis would be instrumental
Yeah.
in that process. But we worked with James Raymond, who is a dear friend of my husband. They grew up together and they went to grade school
Hmm.
together. And he is the son of the late David Crosby. And
Hmm.
but he didn't know that he was related to David Crosby until he'd already established his music career. He'd been adopted, and in his 30s, as he was getting married, his adoptive parents said, well, do you want to find out who your biological parents are? And he said, it's not really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of pushed him towards doing that, and he discovered that his dad was, this super musical icon, and that was kind of exciting. And then he went back and was made music with him and toured with him, and produced many of his albums. So James Raymond is incredible, and I think that we would absolutely go to him to work on the score. And we had such an incredible time working with him and making Bird of Paradise. I know he'd be the perfect fit for working on the score together.
Wonderful. I know some writers like to, kind of picture actors in these roles to kind of help them write and everything. And I always find it interesting to pick their brains on that. Were you thinking of a certain actor when you wrote this role, or what, or whatever? So.
Right. Well, I was absolutely thinking of Elizabeth Debicki throughout, and I even had this beautiful picture of her from some scenes in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., where she just was so captivating and seductive and just gorgeous. So I always had her in mind to play Kitty Holladay.
Well, that's a good cast. I'd watch that movie for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. What message do you want us to take away from this story?
The power of love and music to guide us through pain, so that we can overcome our pain to achieve our dreams. The value of facing your fears and your hardships head on.
As hard as it can be, it's worth the journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now you've got just the one book out right now. I know, so you're still a relatively new author, but what advice can you give to anyone who's maybe starting out on their journey?
Don't give up. Keep going. Keep making progress. If you fall off the progress train, let some time go by and get back on, and find the people that will support your creative journey. Work with editors, work with readers, take their feedback, allow their criticism to get past your ego and into your creative intelligence, and use it to put your work through the fire.
I think the word criticism has a lot of negative baggage with it, but it's not meant to, I guess when used properly, it's a very helpful tool.
I think the hardest part of criticism is our ego coming up against it. So I always gave myself time. I would say to myself, I'd see in my inbox, my editor said, okay, here's my revisions, or here's my comments. And I would sort of brace myself and say, okay, I'm going to give myself 48 hours to have a little private little fit. And then I'm going to allow their criticism to start its magic. And for me to go through that process of applying it and revising and making the work better, because the revision is where the magic happens.
Nobody can just pound out the perfect novel on the first draft. Maybe Charles Dickens, I don't know, but
No, I don't think so.
No. Yeah. I've got a book that, kind of a sidetrack here, but it's of A Christmas Carol, and it has, the print, but on the other side is the original handwritten manuscript copy. And even in that, it's scratched out, it's written in the margins, it's all this stuff that he's making changes as he goes. So editing is a necessary evil, I guess, but
yes. Well, and I wouldn't even call it an evil. It's just, right. It is necessary to the art. It is the art.
Yeah. As you're writing, what's been some of the most difficult parts of writing versus the some of the best parts of writing?
I would say the most difficult part and the best parts are the same parts, and that is doing the work. For me, sitting down and telling the story, I think, oh, it's going to be so much fun. I had this wonderful idea of putting the story on paper, and letting story lead the way and say what I'm trying to say takes a lot of effort. And applying myself to that effort is both the best part and the most difficult part.
Yeah, there's no shortcut, much like processing grief. You can't,
right.
here's like 3 easy life hacks to get you through writing your novel.
There's no shortcut to writing a great novel.
Right. That includes using an AI chat bot or something to write novels for you. I mean,
Do they have those? Unbelievable. I wouldn't trust
it's
mine as far as I could throw it.
yeah. I don't know. Apparently, one short story magazine realized they had been getting subscriptions or
Submissions.
submissions, yeah, of short stories, that were written by the chat AI thing that's been going around, and so then they had to kind of stop and reprocess through all their submissions to see, okay, which ones are actually written by people, and
Right.
why are we doing this? Then sounds like it was somebody out looking for a quick buck,
That's funny.
but yeah, it's kind of scary, but um, yeah, do the work yourself. Let your voice come out. Tell your story. It's a worthwhile journey.
Yeah, well, in the first four drafts of this novel were really about me finding my voice. And so I'm so grateful as I'm starting my next novel, which I've already written the first draft of, and I'm going
Hmm.
back and working through the second draft now. Um, I would compare the draft I'm in now to the fourth draft of the first book that I wrote, because I made that much growth and achievement in learning how to write a book. And I already know my voice, and that's something that will carry through in all of the books that I write. And so it's wonderful to have that part of it down and to feel comfortable. And I've achieved that. I know that.
Hmm. So for future projects, again, I know you're working on the early stages of turning the music we make into a film, and you've got a second novel hopefully on the way here soon.
Absolutely. I'm
Anything?
working on that. I'm working on that.
Hmm.
So between working on Almost Perfect, my second novel, and the making of the music we make into a movie, I feel like artistically I don't really have room for anything else. Those things are all encompassing
Mm.
in balancing my life between being a wife and a mother and business owner.
Hmm.
Those artistic projects are all I need.
There you go. What's your second book going to be about? If you can give us a little sneak peek.
It stars a ballerina, and it's really about the importance of finding your passion and staying connected to your passion. No matter where your future goes, there's not one way that your life needs to go in pursuing your passion, but staying true to what that is and not losing touch with your passion and the importance of that.
All right, another powerful story coming our way for sure.
Indeed. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
gets into sort of the addiction that women have with perfection and body image, and the links they'll go to maintain that.
Well, I don't know if maybe I'm not the right person to comment on that personally, but that is, well, even my daughter, who's only almost 14,
Well,
it
that's a
starts so
powerful
young.
time to experiencing
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I have a 13
Yeah.
year old daughter,
Okay.
and I'm already seeing how food starts to be, they start to have a strange
Hmm.
relationship with food, a strange relationship with body image. I see the art that she doodles, that a lot of it are of women, and I see the body types that she draws, and I see the way that she's eating, and I think all of this
Hmm.
is already has it's not just a straightforward relationship that
Mm.
young girls have at 13, 14 with food and body image and exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's a lot of pressure. I feel
Right.
sorry. Yeah, I feel sorry for her sometimes. Just what they have to deal with at school.
Right,
It's
and they
hard.
have to sort of go through it. And as a parent, you have to be so careful what you say when you talk about it. And
Yeah.
I'm always trying to be so thoughtful about the ways that I address the things that I notice about her relationship with food and body image. So, and the book that I'm writing really gets into that in a very intense way, because it deals with ballerinas who are such incredible athletes and some of the most powerful athletes in the artistic world, and
Hmm.
yet they have this relationship with food that can be very challenging, because they need to keep a certain aesthetic, which is to be very, very thin,
Hmm.
and so it puts them in a very challenging place.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to reading that. Then I'll keep an eye out whenever it drops.
Absolutely.
uh,
I will let you know, Art.
okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Uh, can you go ahead and share your websites and social media where people can find you online?
Absolutely. You can find me at michellerenedebellis.com. Michelle, Michelle, Rene, Rene, DeBellis, DeBellis.com. You can find the book at themusicwemake.com. You can also get a Kindle and Audible version on Amazon, and I highly recommend the Audible version of The Music We Make. It's just so much more fun that way.
Hmm.
And you can find me on Instagram at Michelle Rene DeBellis.
All right. And again, the audio version you read yourself. So everyone make sure to check that out for sure. That's definitely a good way to go. And then you can like clean your house while you're listening to her tell you a story.
Absolutely.
So
That's the best way to do it.
yep. Speaking of which, I probably have some chores I got to get done. So
Well, it's been a real pleasure, Art. Thank you so
yes,
much.
thank you for coming on today, and best of luck to you on all that you have coming up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for listening to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. You can check out the show notes to find out all the information, links, and books that we referenced in today's episode. If you'd like to help support the show, I'd love for you to share on your social medias, tell your bookworm friends, share with your author friends, and help us get the word out. If you'd like to help out in a financial way, there are links in the show notes. We can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. You can find all episodes at bookshelfodyssey.com. And please follow us on my social medias. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And so until next time, happy reading, everyone, and take care.